So I just found something really cool that you can do inside of Windows. Now, it's been around for a while, but I just discovered this the other day. Today, I'm going to show you how I installed Linux inside of Windows. Now, this is not a virtual machine, and this is not dual booting. I'm talking about running Linux natively inside of Windows. So if you stick with me, I'm going to go over the steps on how to install WSL in Windows. Before we do that, let me explain what WSL is. Windows Subsystem for Linux is a feature of Windows that allows you to run a Linux environment on your Windows machine without the need for a separate virtual machine or dual booting. WSL is designed to provide a seamless and productive experience for developers who want to use both Windows and Linux at the same time. Windows also has a similar system for Android applications, which you may have heard of, but this is specifically for Linux and Linux applications. So today we're going to go over the steps involved in installing WSL on your Windows machine, and then I'm going to take it one step further, and I am going to install a desktop and a remote application so that you can use your Linux distro as a remote desktop inside of your Windows computer. So today, for demonstration purposes, I will be using my Framework Gen 1 laptop, which I picked up a couple years ago. If you're interested in knowing more about Framework computers, I do have an unboxing and a long-term review of this computer. Now, Framework did not offer any compensation for any of those videos. I purchased the Framework with my own money, and all the opinions of the computer are my own. So our first step in setting up WSL is the easiest step of them all, and that is, on your computer, you're going to open PowerShell, but you want to open PowerShell as an administrator. So with PowerShell opened up as administrator, all we have to do by default is type in the following command: WSL space -- install. Now this will default to Ubuntu Linux. If you would like to install a different distro, you would just use the additional commands: space -d for distro. And then in my case, I'm going to type in Kali Linux. Now, in some cases, your computer will not automatically download the content, so you will need to use another command called --web download. And then you just hit enter. Now, this will download the Windows subsystem for Linux, and it will install the Windows subsystem for Linux, and it should pull down the rolling Kali Linux install. Now, we have to reboot the computer. So I'm going to exit and restart. And once the computer's restarted, we can go further. So now that we have Kali Linux installed via WSL, all we have to do is go to our Start menu, and you can see that Kali Linux is in our recommended applications. So you can just click on that, and now it's asking for a username and a password. And now we need to verify the password. That is it. So as you can see through here, I've already actually installed this and just reran through the setup. Your setup process time could take a little longer, depending on how long it takes to download and install Kali Linux. But this is it. We are in Kali Linux. Now, I'm going to take this one step further, and I'm going to install a desktop and a remote desktop protocol so that I can use this as a remote installation of Kali Linux. Now, to do that, we have a handful of commands we'll need to run. First, we need to update sudo apt update. So sudo apt update is the default command for Ubuntu-based Linux for updating the software. Because we ran it as sudo, we need our password. Now it's going to run through and pull all the latest updates for Kali Linux. Now that that's done, we need to install the desktop. To do that, I'm going to use sudo apt install Kali win x dash space dash y. First, I'm going to spell Kali correctly. Now, this again will take a little while because it is installing the entire desktop experience for Kali Linux. And now that that is finished, we need one last program so that we can remote into our desktop. And that program is XRDP. Now, I use this program at work because we have some Linux devices that some of our contractors use, and we have to give them the ability to remote in. So to install XRDP is quite simple. Sudo apt install XRDP dash space dash y. Now, in my case, it's already installed. I think that's part of Kali Linux already. But in order for this to work properly, we need to change the port number that Kali Linux is using for the remote desktop protocol. By default, it is set to port 3389. I am going to change it to port 3388, but you can change it to whatever open port you want to use. To do that, we're going to use a command called sed. Sed looks for things in a file and replaces them. So in our case, we're going to type in sudo space sed space dash I space apostrophe s slash 3389 slash 3388 slash g apostrophe, or quotations actually, space etc dash slash etc slash xrdp slash xrdp dot ini. And what that's doing is that is going through the file that it's located in etc xrdp called xrdp ini. And it's going to find the spot and it's going to change it to port 3388. That's it. Our final step is to type in a command that will start XRDP if it's not already started. Sudo space slash etc slash init dot d slash xrdp space start. That's it. So we can close or minimize this PowerShell instance, which I'm going to just minimize. Then we're going to type in RDP into our start menu, and we're going to open it. Now, this is the default program for Windows remote desktop applications. You can use whatever remote desktop application you might have installed on your computer. To find our Linux distro, we only have to type in localhost colon 3388 for our port number. Then we hit connect, and we'll see that Windows wants to make sure that we know what we're talking about and want these security keys. We hit yes, and we're automatically greeted with this screen. Now, our username is the same username we set up for our Linux distro. Same as the password. There you have it. We are in a Linux distro installed inside of Windows, and you can interact with it in Windows. So that if we minimize this, you could go into Windows and you could interact with the Linux distro that way. So as you can see, we've got our web browsers, we've got terminal emulators, and we've got all the applications that Kali Linux has installed by default. Now, I'm not going to go through those today. The only reason I'm installing Kali Linux is I have an interest in network security, and I want to learn more about it. So I'm going to play around with this as a default distro and learn some things about network security. So now that we've installed WSL, let's talk about some use cases. So number one, you can use this as a dev environment. So it's perfect for people who do coding, testing, and debugging because you can run Linux native tools like GCC, Git, and even Docker directly inside the Windows machine. You can use it for web development. You can use tools like Node.js and Python and Ruby, and you can interact between the applications inside of the Linux environment from Windows and vice versa. For systems administration, you can use this to remote into other Linux boxes and run scripts and test scripts on Linux boxes without actually having to install a virtual machine yourself. So there you have it. In those 5 or 6 easy steps, we've installed WSL on our computer, installed the Kali Linux distro, added a desktop, and given ourselves remote desktop protocols to Kali Linux. Now from there, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want inside of your Linux distro, and you can interact with it on the Windows side as well. In the comment section, I will include some very helpful links on how I was able to do all of this you saw here today. If you like the content you see here, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you can keep up with all the content that I publish. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as I have making it. My name is Bryant. This is Reviews for Nerds. Have a great day.